of the crimes committed by Jack the Ripper as he terrorized the streets of London and carved his way into the British psyche. Everyone has heard of Jack the Ripper. Not many know the full story, but everyone has a vague impression of dark, foggy streets in Victorian London with a mad serial killer on the loose, attacking and viciously mutilating his prostitute victims. It is perhaps the greatest, most famous unsolved crime in the world, the one that draws tourists from across the globe to the streets of London's East End. Of course, the catalogue was careful to make sure that the claims for the shawl were muted. There was no proof it had belonged to the victim, Catherine Eddowes, just a long family history. But still, there was a good chance. I had done some research. I believed it was genuine, and I wanted it. I wanted it very badly. I was nursing a nugget of information about the shawl that only I knew, a secret that made it much more important to me, and one I believed would add a great deal to what little we know about Jack the Ripper. I set off for the auction early. It started at 10 a.m, and my wife Sally and I were living with our toddler son Alexander in Newmarket, only 25 minutes away. She didn't come with me. She doesn't share my fascination with the Ripper story. I dressed casually, keen not to draw attention to myself, but smartly enough to show that I was serious. I expected a large crowd, and I was right. A huge barn of an auction room, the size of a football pitch, and crammed with furniture, was packed with people. And I guessed at least some of them were there for the same item as me. National and local newspapers had carried stories about the auction, so there was bound to be a high level of interest. Before the sale started, a bemused assistant from the auction firm was holding the shawl up high so that a crowd gathered round him could look at it. He clearly could not understand the massive interest in this old, damaged piece of material. I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The auction started, and as lot after lot went by, I realized nothing much was being sold. Clearly, not just some, but the bulk of people in the crowded room were there for the shawl. I was worried. I felt sure it would soar way above its reserve, and in my mind I saw it reaching a sum of £150,000 or more. Was I prepared to go that high? Yes, I wanted it so badly I would have paid whatever it took to get it. As the morning dragged on, I noticed that Stuart Evans, one of the world's leading authorities on the Ripper case and a collector of true crime ephemera, was there. I had seen him on television, being interviewed in various documentaries about the subject, so I decided to ask him for his opinion on the shawl without revealing my own interest. He chatted happily about the Ripper story, but seemed to be dismissive about the authenticity of the shawl. "It's not for me," he said. "I'm only here to see who it goes to. Nobody should buy it." I felt he might be bluffing, trying to throw me and anyone else who was drawn to listen to him off. He looked at me keenly, and I was sure he was sizing up whether or not I was going to rival him in the bidding. With half the auction lot sold, a lunch break was called. I wasn't interested in eating. My stomach was lurching at the thought of what was to come. I made my way to the office to have a look at the book that was mentioned in the catalogue. When I got there, I found a small group of people gathered round a very tall man who was holding up the book and expounding on the shawl and its history. I realized this was Andy Parler, whose research for the appendix was the crucial part of the book in terms of the shawl. He was enjoying telling everyone about it, so I asked a few superficial questions. I didn't want to show my hand, but I wanted to hear everything he could share. Luckily, like Stuart Evans, Andy did not need much encouragement to talk. Every so often I said something like, "That's interesting, mate," just to keep him going. I found it hard to believe that I was actually in the same room as this man, who was a specialist on the shawl, and Stuart Evans, a top expert on the whole Ripper story. And every so often I reminded myself that I knew something about the shawl that everyone else had missed, even the guys who had given years of research to the subject. When the auction resumed, I decided to stand at Stuart Evans's shoulder, thinking that